guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to do my December wrap-up part 1. In December, I picked my 10 lowest rated books on my TBR shelf and I'm going to read them. So I have 5 of those books for this list and I'll have the other 5 for the end of December. Basically, I wanted to get all the bad vibes and all of the bad ratings off of my physical TBR. And as well, I try not to read books that I think will be my favorite at the end of the year because I don't then give them the proper time to like marinate in my mind to give them their rating when I do my best books of the year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to talk about the 2 books that are not the worst and then I'm going to get to the books that are rated the worst. The first book I want to talk about is A Little Life by Hanya Yanigahara. And this was supposed to be a buddy read with Geonawan from Geonawan Reads. She's amazing. We have very similar reading tastes and buddy reading with her has been so fun. Last month we read My Lovely Wife together and then this month was supposed to be A Little Life, but I don't know who I think I am because I'm finishing up a book which is over 400 pages. Slice of life is not my thing. However, when Geonawan was like, let's read it, I was like, yes, I also have this on my shelf. Let's read it. Who am I? So I actually DNF'd this at 10%, which is actually 70 pages in, because this is quite a chunkster. However, don't take my word for it, because Geonawan read it all the way to the end, and she loved it. So if you want to see her review, I will leave her channel link down below. But this just wasn't for me, not my cup of tea. And the other book I read this month, which isn't part of the worst books, is Crown of Coral and Pearl. So this one is a library book that I picked up. I had it on reserve and it finally just came in, so I just felt like reading it because I like sea-themed books. So we are following Noor and Zadie, who are 2 twin sisters who are raised on kind of like this ocean community where all of the buildings are made of stilts and they're in the middle of the ocean and they live and they make their money from diving for pearls. And the main source of income as well is kind of keeping a good relations with the land country named Ilara, and they have to send their most beautiful woman about every 20 years to marry the prince or the king of Ilara. Zadie and Noor have been raised to be very beautiful from a young age. There was an accident like 7 years ago where Noor got a little cut on her cheek, and so she's basically disqualified from potentially being the one to be sent. Things take a turn for the worst and she actually has to substitute for her sister because they're twins. So she ends up going to the land and she's never been on land before. She has no idea of political systems or what's happening, and things go from there. I really enjoyed it. I read this in one sitting. I started this at 10 before bed and then I read it till like 3 a.m. and yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I give it 3.5 stars because it was really, really great. The reason it gets 3.5 is because some of the writing was a bit repetitive, and then also I saw a lot of the plot coming, but this is also for a YA audience, so take that as you will. But I really enjoyed this, and I will be picking up the next one, which is out next year in the fall, I think. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about 5 books which are rated very low from like basically on Goodreads. So all these books are rated 3.5 stars or below, which I know that, you know, you might not think that that's that low, but I don't buy books for my physical TBR that are lower than that often. So I only had 10 books which were 3.5 and below. So, all right, we're gonna go from my least favorite to my most favorite of them. So the first one is Super Extra Grande by Yoss. So on Goodreads, this is rated a 3.2. I read A Planet for Rent by Yoss, which was super amazing, really great. This one, however, is written half in English and half in mangled Spanglish, and it was really rough going. I read the first 20 pages and just could not understand. And it's not like I can't pick up context, but the thing is that there are whole parts of this which are written in Spanglish, and I just don't understand. So I had my husband read it, and he found it hilarious, and the reason that he liked it was because of the Spanglish. He speaks Spanish fluently, so he said he really liked it, but all the funny bits were in the Spanish, so he's like, I don't know if you'll be able to understand or like get the humor of the book. So we're keeping this. I DNF'd it he liked it, so it's gonna go on his bookshelf. I realized I haven't even told you guys what this is about. So this is about a space veterinarian who takes care of mega colossal sized space beings. So when it first opens, we're following him as he's trying to get a diamond bracelet out of like this huge space whale, I think. Yeah, so if that sounds at all interesting to you and you speak Spanish, then this might be the perfect fit for you. So the next one I want to talk about is Our Life in the Forest by Marie Darrieussecq. I'm so sorry, I just butchered your name. So this is rated 3.5 on Goodreads, and she is blurbed as a surrealist writer, and I do understand what she's going for here. So we are in a dystopian world where basically people have their halves, which are basically twins, clones that have been made of them, and when a part of their body wears out, then their body part is replaced from that clone's body part. The main character and some other humans have broken out some of their halves, and now they're living in like this debilitated part of the forest jungle, and they're hiding from drones, they're trying to eke out a living, they're making burrows underground, but it's all very disjointed and confusing because this doesn't have any line breaks, the whole thing. There are sentences, thank goodness, but yeah, so there's no line breaks. So it all looks like this, there's no break. So I found it to be pretty exhausting as well as boring. So I think some of the main plot twists that happen like toward the end, I saw coming like miles back. So anyone who's read like a dystopian probably could see what's coming. So ultimately, this just was not for me, and I gave it 2 stars. I will definitely be donating this book and hope someone else will like it more than me. So next is Rainbirds by Clarissa Gowan. This is rated, I think, 3.4 on Goodreads. So in this one, we are following a brother who goes back to a specific country town in Japan where his sister has been brutally stabbed to death. And he goes to take care of the funeral arrangements and then also like clear out her workspace and her apartment. And instead, he decides to kind of stay there and takes on a job at her place of work and kind of tries to see what happened, like what the situation was that led to her murder. And he realizes like that maybe he didn't know her as well as he thought he did. So the reason that it gets 2.5 stars is because I really liked the ambiance of it. It's very Japanese, atmospheric, which is interesting because the author is actually Indonesian-born Singaporean, but I have read a lot of Japanese literature, and this had a very Japanese writing style, so very authentic. I also really liked how she described the way that Japanese towns were and how they worked. That's very much very true. However, the reason it got 2.5 stars was because the plot, I was there for it about 2/3 of the way through, and then I realized that we're never gonna find out what really happened, and there's not gonna be any resolution, nothing's gonna come to a head. And then I got mad that I was tricked into reading this book and nothing really happened. Something is hinted at, but it's never confirmed, and then the main character doesn't do anything with that information, and I was just like, hello, like, what are we doing? Why did I read this book? Yeah, so I don't recommend this one, and I agree, wasn't for me, and I will be donating it. Yes, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so now we are to the 2 books that I do recommend. This is Lullaby by Leila Slimani, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. So when the book first opens, you find out that the nanny has brutally murdered the 2 children that she was tasked with looking after. And I really like dark French murder mysteries. There's something about the French writing style that's very succinct and chilling, I find. So I was really keen to get into this. So I did really enjoy it. I think that the pacing was a little weird. In the beginning, the pacing was like super amazing, but then we hear from a bunch of point of views that I just don't care, could not care less. So we're following the nanny's point of view, and she is the woman that everyone looks over. She works hard, but she's kind of never given a chance to recuperate. Her husband, who was an a-hole, died, left her with a bunch of debt, and so she's really struggling, and you see through her point of view like how much she loves the kids and how much energy she gives to them. And then we see other points of view as well, like the wife of the family and the mother of the children. And her perspective is completely different, where she views the nanny through the lens of an employer and through the lens of the mother of the children. Chilling. And then we view some other points of view, which I don't care. So that's kind of why 1 star went away. And the other star that went away was because you see right after the murder, and then it goes right back to the beginning, and then you work back up to the murder. However, you never see anything happen. So it's kind of like all the best parts of it were the very first chapter. So I don't know why they did that. I think, like, truly they should have put the first chapter at the end where it belongs, because when I got to the end, I thought that there would be like a more explosive part, and then there wasn't. Yeah, so that's why this book gets 3 stars overall. If you like kind of murder mystery or kind of messed up family or translated works, because this is French, highly recommend. It was quite good. And the last book that I'm going to talk about today is rated 3.2 stars on Goodreads. It's one of the lowest books that I own, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. Okay, so before I even talk about it, this book is really divisive and not for everyone, so just keep that in mind. So this is A Game We Play by Simona Vinci. It's quite small. It's an Italian translation. So we are following small children who live kind of in the poor area of a small Italian village. Their parents, their siblings are busy and not looking after them, so they're left to their own devices pretty much from breakfast to dinner. And we are following a little troop of children between the ages of 9 and 15. The children start to explore their sexuality with each other, so there's no adults involved, but it's kind of a very dark coming of age story where they first are learning to experiment because one of them found a dirty magazine. So it's very much like back and forth between that line between pure innocent childhood and then starting to get into adult matters. And then the end of this book is so dark and just horrifying. I finished this book on a train and I was like trying not to just openly cry. So I'm just going to mention the trigger warnings right now, so that do not read this book if like these things, no. Sex between children, no adults are involved. BDSM play, manslaughter. Things take a very dark turn, and it's all, like I said, young children are doing it, and it's kind of like the argument is who should be to blame? Is it the parents who aren't looking after these children? Is it that, you know, someone was really careless and left those things around children? Is it that some of the older children who are like 14 or 15 should get some of the culpability for it? It gave me so much to think about, and I really want my husband to read it so that we can talk about it, because I think it's a lot like books like We Need to Talk About Kevin, where something horrible has happened and you're trying to pick apart like why. If you like dark content, if you can stomach that, if this at all intrigues you, I do recommend it. But if any of that sounds very concerning to you and like you would not be able to read that, if it's triggering, absolutely don't pick this book up. Like, I wouldn't recommend it for you, so just skip it. So of the 5 books that were on my lowest rated, so I'm doing 10, but these are the 5. So these I wouldn't recommend, these I would recommend, and then this one my husband really liked. So yeah, it's good to get the low rated books off my shelves, I guess. And look out for the other half of this in my December wrap-up part 2. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a lovely December, and I will chat to you later in another video soon. Okay, love you. Bye!